What does it mean to be the richest country in West Africa? If you measure by gold, Ghana has been rich for 1,000 years. The Ashanti Kingdom traded it across the Sahara before Europe knew this coastline existed. Today, Ghana is the largest gold producer in Africa, surpassing even South Africa. If you measure by harvest, Ghana is rich again. Nearly 1 million tonnes of cocoa leave this country every year, enough to supply almost every chocolate bar you've ever tasted. If you measure by energy, there's a dam on the Volta River that generates over 1,000 megawatts, enough to light 3 countries from a single gorge. If you measure by pride, this was the first nation south of the Sahara to lower a colonial flag and raise its own. March 6, 1957, the Black Star rose, and 32 African nations followed within a decade. But if you measure by what the numbers don't capture, Ghana is richer still. Rich in a cloth called Kente, whose patterns carry the vocabulary of kings. Rich in a meal called fufu that can only be made by 2 people working in trust. Rich in a lighthouse that has watched the same harbour for a century. In a boy who studies by the light of a doorway. In children who run toward a camera laughing because they have never learned to be afraid of strangers. The richest country in West Africa, not because of what lies beneath the soil, but because of what stands on top of it. This is Ghana, and the word richest barely scratches the surface. Come and see for yourself what that word truly means. Elmina, the name itself comes from the Portuguese da mina, the mine. That fortress built in the 15th century still stands on a strip of coastline where the Atlantic meets the Gold Coast. São Jorge da Mina, not a church, not a mission, a fortress built to guard the gold that flowed south from the Ashanti hinterland. Nothing like it had existed on this coast before. Its whitewashed walls still stand on the rocky shore, thick and unyielding, shaped not for beauty, but for control. Beneath the courtyards, dungeons held what the ledgers did not record. On the hill above, Fort Coenraadsburg watches over the town like a second sentinel. The Dutch built it to take Elmina from the Portuguese. The British later took it from the Dutch. Every empire that reached this coast wanted what lay behind these walls. And what they wanted changed. First gold, then human beings. The commodity shifted, but the architecture of extraction remained. Below the castle walls, Elmina today is dense, colourful and alive. Fishing boats crowd the harbour in rows so tight they seem to hold each other afloat. A bridge spans the lagoon, connecting the old fort to the town that grew around it. Fishermen still launch their wooden canoes at dawn, navigating the same waters where Portuguese caravels once anchored. The rhythm of the coast has not changed, only the flags have. At golden hour, the castle glows warm against the Atlantic. 5 centuries compressed into white stone and crashing waves. Elmina does not explain itself. It simply endures and asks you to remember what happened here. "30 kilometres east of Elmina stands another fortress. Cape Coast Castle. It is known across the world for a single passage, a narrow doorway cut into the seaward wall. They called it the Door of No Return. Through this opening, thousands of men, women, and children were led from the darkness of the dungeons into the blinding light of the Atlantic, and onto ships that would carry them to the Americas. Most never saw this coast again. The cannons still line the ramparts, aimed not inland but seaward. They were never meant to protect the people held below. They guarded a trade that forced an estimated 12 million Africans across the Atlantic, a significant share of them through the castles of this coast. Today, it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a place of pilgrimage and reckoning. Cape Coast wraps around its castle the way a city wraps around a wound. Every year, thousands of visitors from the African diaspora walk through these corridors. Some weep, some pray, some simply stand in the dungeons and breathe. From above, the castle is geometry against the ocean, its courtyard open to the sky. But what these walls hold cannot be seen from the air. It can only be felt by those who walk through them. Inland from the castles, the landscape transforms. Kaikom National Park covers 375 square kilometres of primary tropical rainforest, one of the last intact stretches of the Upper Guinean forest that once blanketed West Africa. A canopy walkway, 350 metres long, threads through the treetops 40 metres above the forest floor. From here, the rainforest reveals its architecture layers of green, each with its own ecosystem, its own inhabitants, its own rules of light and shade. Below the canopy, mist clings to the hills where the forest meets the mountains. palms rise in dense columns, their fronds catching the equatorial sun. Beyond the park boundary, cocoa trees grow in the shade of taller hardwoods. The forest gives, and for now, people take without destroying them. Another kind of wealth grows here, quietly, between the roots. Ghana produces nearly 1 million tonnes of cocoa every year, second only to neighbouring Côte d'Ivoire. The pods grow not on branches but directly from the trunk, thick and ridged, turning gold when ready to harvest. Under the canopy, a new generation of cocoa engineers works with tablets and data, monitoring yields where their grandparents once relied on instinct alone. The machete has not disappeared. It now shares the field with technology. Plantations stretch beyond the horizon, rows of green dissolving into haze. This is the crop that replaced gold as the foundation of Ghana's wealth, the tree of money growing quietly in the shade. In the Volta region, near the Togolese border, the terrain rises. Mist clings to ridgelines where the Agamatsa range pushes through the canopy. The hills roll in silence, wrapped in cloud and green as if the land itself were breathing. Wli Falls, the tallest waterfall in West Africa. 80 metres of water dropping from a cliff face draped in moss and vine. You hear it long before you see it, a low roar that fills the valley and silences everything else. At its base, a plunge pool gathers the force of the cascade. Swimmers float in the mist, dwarfed by the cliff walls rising on either side. The scale is not dramatic in the way of mountains. It is intimate, enclosed, as though the earth had opened to show you something it does not reveal from above. Deeper in the highlands, Wli Falls splits into twin cascades, smaller and quieter, tucked into the forest like a secret. Kept between the trees and the river, in the valley below, Wli village breathes with the rhythm of the falls. Water is not a feature here, it is the landscape itself. In 1965, Kwame Nkrumah's most ambitious vision became concrete and steel. The Akosombo Dam, built across the Volta River Gorge, rose from the hills of southeastern Ghana with a single purpose: to electrify a nation that had just gained its independence. The dam wall stands 66 metres high. Behind it, the Volta backed up across the lowlands, flooding villages, displacing 80,000 people and drowning an area larger than some countries. The orange pipes that feed the turbines carry more than water. They carry the weight of a national promise. (1,020 megawatts, enough to power Ghana and export electricity to Togo and Benin. The Volta, once wild and seasonal, now runs on schedule, regulated by engineers in a control room overlooking the gorge. Downstream, the Adomi Bridge arches across the river in a single steel span, connecting east to west. It was built before the dam, in 1957, the year of independence itself. Two structures, two ambitions, one river holding them both. Below the bridge, speedboats trace white lines across dark water. The Volta here is wide and calm, its current invisible, its power already extracted upstream. What was once a force of nature is now infrastructure. A town grew around the dam. Akosombo, once a construction camp, became a settlement with schools, markets, and resorts along the lakeshore. The power station drew people the way the gold once did, not for what they could take, but for what it could give. Behind the dam, the Volta spread. 8,502 square kilometres of water, the largest man-made lake on Earth by surface area. It reshaped the geography of an entire region, swallowing valleys, forests, and farmland beneath a surface that now stretches to the horizon in every direction. Villages line the shores where none existed before. Boats have become roads. Fishermen cast their nets where farms once stood, pulling tilapia from water that was once dry ground. Children walk to school along dirt paths that end at the waterline. On the far bank, a soccer field stretches out beside a village where the lake is both boundary and lifeline. At sunrise, the Volta glows amber beneath the arch of Adomi Bridge. The water is harnessed but not broken. It still moves, still reflects the sky, still carries the memory of every valley it swallowed to become what it is now. In Fumso, deep in the Ashanti heartland, the sound of wooden looms fills the air before you see them. This is where Kente is born, a cloth once reserved for royalty and sacred ceremonies among the Ashanti and Wli peoples. Now the fabric of national identity. Each pattern has a name and a meaning. Gold, threads for royalty and wealth. Green for the harvest, blue for peace. The weavers know these codes by heart, passed down through families the way language is passed down, not taught but absorbed. A young weaver works the loom with headphones on, his hands moving in rhythms his grandfather would recognise. The tools have not changed, only the soundtrack has. Beyond the loom, other hands shape other materials. Silversmiths hold torches to metal, sawyers steady their blades. Screen printers press bright yellow pigment through stencils onto indigo cloth. A vocabulary of craft that no factory can replicate. The rhythm comes first, a heavy wooden pestle striking a mortar, steady as a heartbeat. This is how fufu is made, pounded cassava and plantain, shaped by hand until it becomes smooth, elastic and warm. In Ghana, this is not simply food, it is ritual. Two women work in sync, 1 pounds. The other turns the dough between strikes with bare hands, a precision that comes from years of practice and trust. Nearby, a stew simmers, tomato, pepper, and palm oil thickening in an iron pot. Every household has its own recipe. None are written down. The proportions live in the hands of the cook, adjusted by instinct, passed from mother to daughter the way proverbs are passed, through repetition. Vegetables are chopped on wooden boards. Greens are cleaned in basins of water. The kitchen here is not a room. It is an open-air stage where meals are assembled in view of the whole household. Fufu is eaten with the right hand. No utensils. You tear a piece, press a small well into it, and scoop the stew. A meal that insists on presence, on slowing down, on sitting together. "60 kilometres west of Accra, Winneba is a town built around its harbour. A red and white lighthouse marks the entrance, standing above a shore crowded with painted fishing boats in blues, greens, and yellows. So tightly packed they seem to form a single mosaic against the sand. Fishing here is not an industry. It is the town itself. Men push wooden boats into the surf before dawn and haul nets at dusk. Their catch sold before the sun has fully set. In Winneba, the calendar follows the sea. At sunset, the fleet becomes a silhouette. Single boats drift on open water, their flags catching the last light off the Atlantic. There is a stillness here that the daytime does not allow. But the coast is not only labour. On the same beaches where fishermen mend their nets, jet skis carve white arcs across turquoise water. Young women run into the surf, laughing. The ocean gives work and pleasure in equal measure. From above, the shoreline stretches in both directions, a strip of gold between the green of the town and the blue of the sea. Winneba does not separate life from the water. It lives inside it. Accra. 3 million people press between the Atlantic and the Savannah. A city where glass towers rise beside corrugated rooftops, where 6-lane highways end at open-air markets. Where the old and the new exist not in sequence but simultaneously, stacked on top of each other. From above, the city sprawls in every direction, dense neighbourhoods dissolving into green at the edges. Modern buildings catch the sun alongside churches, mosques, and construction cranes that never seem to rest. The Kwame Nkrumah Circle interchange is the concrete knot at the heart of it all. Thousands of vehicles converge here each hour, weaving through loops and overpasses in a choreography that somehow holds together. This is where modern Ghana moves fastest. To the east, the skyline is being rewritten. Villaggio Vista rises in green, yellow and red, its geometry bold against the grey of the older city. Glass office towers along the coast catch the morning light, their facades reflecting a country betting on its own future. But the GDP numbers do not distribute evenly. Behind the towers, lagoons choke with plastic waste. Tin-roofed corridors stretch for blocks where electricity is borrowed and water shared. No one hides this. It is the city's most honest feature. Factory smokestacks rise at the industrial edge. Container yards stack shipping boxes in rows of red, blue and orange. The port never stops loading. Accra does not pause to reflect. It builds. At night, headlights become rivers of white and red. The interchange glows like a circuit board, its loops traced in light. The city does not sleep, it simply changes tempo. And always, the Atlantic. Waves break against the same shore where fishermen cast their nets within sight of high-rises. The oldest rhythm and the newest ambition, sharing the same coastline. Makola Market is a sea of umbrellas. Thousands of people move between stalls in a density that defies navigation, negotiating in Twi, Gia, English, and the universal language of the seedy. Everything is for sale here, from fabric to phone chargers, from dried fish to diesel generators. From above, the market appears as a single organism, pulsing and contracting, its colours shifting under the midday sun. Below the canopy, the transactions happen face to face, hand to hand. No receipts, no registers, only trust, memory, and the speed of the count. Hands count cetus in stacks, fingers moving with practiced speed. Entrepreneurship here is not a buzzword. It is survival refined into ambition. A metalworker sends sparks from a grinding wheel, shaping iron the way his father did. At the Ghana Trade Fair grounds, the formal meets the informal. Exhibition halls sit beside open lots where deals are made under shade trees. Commerce in Accra does not wait for permission. It invents its own infrastructure. The hustle is not desperation. It is ambition compressed, resourceful, and relentless. In Makola, every square metre earns its keep. The red and white lighthouse has watched this harbour for more than a century. Below it, the oldest neighbourhood in Accra presses against the shore, dense and weathered. Its streets too narrow for cars, but wide enough for generations of stories. Boys play soccer on a dirt field between the sea and the slum, their shouts mixing with the crash of waves. The pitch has no lines, the goalposts are wooden sticks. The game never stops. On the beach, weathered canoes rest hull up on the sand, their paint cracked and fading. Nets dry in tangled piles beside oil drums and engine parts. Jamestown was a fishing village before it was anything else, and at its core, it still is. From the air, the density is staggering. Buildings lean against each other in a maze of rust-coloured metal and bare concrete. Every alley leads somewhere. Every rooftop holds something. A water tank, a clothesline, a satellite dish. James Fort sits on the waterline, its stone walls darkened by salt and time. Once a slave trading post, now a police station, and a reminder that history in this city is not displayed in museums. It is lived in. Usher Fort nearby has the same weight. Walls that once held enslaved people now stand beside a community that lives forward. Not because it is forgotten, but because standing still was never an option. Jamestown is not charming, it is real. Overcrowded, underfunded, resilient. If Accra has a soul, it lives here, in the salt air, in the sound of the pestle, in the lighthouse beam turning slowly over the dark Atlantic. March 6th, 1957. Ghana became the first country in sub-Saharan Africa to break free from colonial rule. The Black Star Gate faces the Atlantic, the same ocean that once carried chains. Now it frames a nation's declaration that it belongs to itself. Independence Square stretches behind the Arch, a vast parade ground where Kwame Nkrumah declared freedom before a crowd that had waited centuries to hear those words. The fountain still flows. The arch still stands. On national holidays, the square fills again, each generation adding its own meaning to the same ground. Independence was not an ending, it was a beginning, and the promise it carried has not expired. Nearby, the Kwame Nkrumah Mausoleum stands in a park of manicured lawns and reflecting pool. Red, gold and green, the colours of the flag, repeated in stone and marble. Ghana's independence was never just for Ghana. It was a signal to the continent. The flag ripples in the wind, its black star sharp against the gold. Every schoolchild knows what it means. Every kiddie carries it. Every passport bears it. North of the forest belt, the land flattens and dries. The canopy thins into scattered trees and open sky. Baobabs stand alone on the horizon like sentinels of a different era. This is another Ghana entirely, one the skyline of Accra cannot see. Mud brick compounds cluster in the dry landscape, their walls shaped by the same earth they sit on. The architecture is not primitive, it is precise, designed for temperatures that regularly exceed 40 degrees and a dry season that lasts 8 months. The Sahel begins here, and with it, a different set of rules. Women walk kilometres for water, carrying basins on their heads along red dirt paths through the bush. They move in single file, their posture straight, their steps unhurried. Water here is not a rite, it is a journey, repeated every day. Children do the same, after school or instead of it. A girl in a peach dress balances a load that should belong to someone twice her age. Childhood in the north carries weight in the most literal sense. Inside a dim room, a boy copies notes by the light of a doorway. His desk is a wooden stool. His textbook is borrowed. Education here is not given. It is fought for, one lesson at a time, in rooms where the loudest sound is a pencil on paper. In the fields, a farmer tills with a hand hoe, clearing corn row by row. A woman tends her small plot in the afternoon sun. Subsistence is not defeat. It is persistence, the quiet refusal to stop growing. At dusk, baboons cross the road near Mole. A mother holds her infant close, moving through the grass without hurry. Guinea fowl peck at dry earth. In the north, wildlife and village overlap without fences or ceremony. Children run toward the drone, waving, laughing, their voices rising above the dust. This is Ghana, measured not only by what it exports, but by what its people still give.